It's Preptober! And I have been prepping for NaNoWriMo, and I've been looking at other people prepping for NaNoWriMo, and I've been looking at all of these people who've created all of these workbooks, and they're all very lovely to have created them, but all of these workbooks are like super intense. And it's like, most of them come with outline your novel and all of the like planning, preparation, Preptober stuff is so centered around this idea of having an outline before you start. Because there seems to be this mentality that as a pantser, you either don't exist, like you're not really a pantser, nobody's really a pantser, you're just an outliner who hasn't learned to outline yet. Or like you so much fly by the seat of your pants that you really don't you really don't need to prepare. I don't think either of these things is true. I tend to write by the seat of my pants, or as I like to call it, in an exploratory method, where I sort of go with the flow. Everybody says that planning and outlining your novel is really important for NaNoWriMo because it will keep you going and get you to the 50,000 words. And I will hold my hands up and admit, freely, I've not reached 50,000 words in the 30-day in the 30-day goal limit before. I've written 50,000 words, I've written 75,000 words and 85,000 words respectively, but not in 30 days. I mean, I've only tried like once, so to be fair, I've only tried once and I failed the 1 year. So how can you, as a person who leans away from outlining, actually put together some kind of plans and preparations for NaNoWriMo without taking the joy and excitement out of your novel? So there are 5 steps that you can possibly take as a pantser who is trying to plan for NaNoWriMo. Thing number 1, character. Who are your characters? What are their names? Your main ones, not like all your side characters. What do they look like? What are their pronouns? What are their base character archetypes? My wife and I always like to joke about who each character is in regards to Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Everybody contained within Pride and Prejudice is an archetype of a character. So you can actually use it to help you formulate your own characters. My current list of characters is... oh, let me just check my NaNoWriMo folder. My current list of characters is, I think, 6 people long. Here we go, yeah. 6 people long. It has their names, their species, because it's a sci-fi, their alien species, their position on the spaceship, their pronouns, and their relationship to other members of the spaceship crew. So, for example, Captain Al, he is a human, he is a long-time first officer, first-time captain, always dreamed of owning his own ship, captain and owner of this ship in question. He is married to the doctor, and his pronouns are he, him. That's it, that's all I've got. And I have that for all 6 of these potential characters, one of whom may not actually be used. You can go into as much or as little depth as you want, but just having a list of some of the characters that you've got set up, like your main character, if they've got a love interest, if they've got a best friend, the antagonist, things like that can be really helpful. Just naming them in October can be great, because then you have them and they're named and you can put that in a specific folder so that you can find it when time rolls around. If you're coming up with like your own fantasy or sci-fi names, that's also a great thing to do, is just make a list of those, put them in an easily accessible place, and ta-da, you don't have to go thinking up a name every time you come up with a new character. You've got a list in easy access. If that doesn't work for you, then obviously don't do it, but it's an option. Thing number 2, world. What is your setting? Creatures, cultures, peoples, etc. Obviously if you're writing a contemporary thing, just start scribbling down things like, where in the world is it set? If you're setting it in London, for example, have you ever been to London? Do you need a map? What kind of transportation system are they using? Do they have an Oyster card? Things like that. If you're coming up with fantasy places, then obviously you need to give them names and cultures and say what kinds of languages they might use and how do all of these characters that are from all of these places interact with one another. What language do they use communally? Do they have translators? Blah, 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 blah. All of these interesting questions. And you don't have to answer all of them, but it's great to start making these example sheets straight off the bat. Ironically, my one is not currently in my folder because I was working on it earlier. It's on my desk. This piece of paper, which you hopefully can't read, is one of the planets from my sci-fi project. It's called Harush. 2 of my characters are from there, and I have exactly 3 notes on it. 1. It's a cold planet. 2. They have formal and diplomatic clothing. Specifications. They also wear tight clothing because it's a cold planet. That's it. That's all I've got so far, because I think the rest of it will come to me as I start exploring the plot and as I start developing these characters further. I've done one of these for every planet that my main 6 people are from, including Earth, because this is set in the future. Thing number 3 that you can do to prepare for NaNoWriMo is research. Are you writing fan fiction? If so, you need to research the people, characters, places, etc. that come up in your original piece of media that you're basing your fan fiction on. Is it historical? You need to start researching the history, the era that you're setting it in, what people were like back then, what bits you want to keep and what bits you want to kind of toss out the window. If you're trying to do a contemporary novel, you can research the places that these characters are going to be in. Even if it's somewhere you've lived all your life, it can be really interesting to discover a little bit more about the setting that you're putting your novel in. And also allowing yourself to have this specific space that you're researching, or even just setting yourself up a piece of paper or a document or a place that you can put down your research question, so that when you're elbow deep in plotting, i.e. writing, you won't have to actually stop the momentum to go researching. You can just put, research this question in big capital letters or something, and then scribble it down on a separate piece of paper. I like to work by hand. And look up the answers to that research question later when you're not in the middle of writing. Because momentum is your best friend as a pantser. In my Camp NaNoWriMo 2019 project, I was writing a pirate novel. And the thing is, I don't know anything about boats. So that was a lot of research that I did not do in advance. So I just started writing down questions for myself, like, research this. How many people? What is a ship knot? Could you have? And then I did all the research after Camp NaNoWriMo had been and gone, because then I wasn't desperate for the momentum of keeping my book going. And I figured, well, ultimately I can come back and fix any issues that I've accidentally written in about my boats. Number 4, what I'm going to call a plot spot. A plot spot is a space to write plot or scene ideas that you have when you're in the middle of doing something else. For example, if you're writing a different part and then you think, actually this could lead to, put it in the plot spot. If you're in the middle of doing the washing up and you can't stop to write, but you can stop to scribble down the concept that you've got in your brain for something to write, put it in the plot spot. If it comes to you before NaNoWriMo even starts, put it in the plot spot. Here's the thing about a plot spot. You don't have to hold to it. It's just ideas, it's concepts, it's maybes, it's, would it be interesting to explore? And it usually comes in the form of like a question or a scene type. Like I have in my plot spot, the potential for everyone on my ship to be landing on a planet that doesn't have an accessible atmosphere, and therefore they each have to do different things to be able to land on the planet and survive. And I think that's a really interesting concept, and it would be something I'd really like to explore, but I haven't written it in any particular detail because it means that when I actually get there and I look at it, I can come up with a bunch of stuff on the fly. I don't have to adhere to anything. It's not anywhere specifically in the novel, it's just a concept that I can explore if I want to. And thing number 5, which is, I'll admit, probably a little bit more for the people who lean more planning way as pantsers but don't like to outline. And wow, is that a convoluted place to be, because according to the actual NaNoWriMo website there are 3 positions you can take on the plotter to pantser spectrum, which is uber plotter, you know every scene in every chapter of every section of your book, to I don't do any planning, let's just jump in and see what happens. And the middle point is apparently people who outline vaguely, and it's like, that's cute, but it's not accurate. But if you are leaning more towards the idea of having a plan, or you like to have a level of planning available to you when you start to do something like editing, if you do edit, I know a lot of people just do a NaNoWriMo project and then stick it on the shelf and enjoy the fact that they did it, and don't have any plans to make it like better and better and better. You can always do index cards as you go, so like as you've written a scene you can write your own little index card. Whether that's a physical index card or an electronic index card is completely up to you, but you write yourself a little index card for what happened in that scene, and you can start putting it into the overall potential outline of your novel. So if you write out of order like I do, you already know what kind of order these things are going to go in, even if it's just generically like, well, this is sort of in Act 1 and this is sort of in Act 2 and this bit has to specifically come after this bit because this bit influences that, and this is going to be in Act 3 and it links back to this one, so I'll just write a little, and so on. I mean, ultimately sometimes you write the end bit and then you find out that actually because you wrote that right at the very beginning, it doesn't fit into the narrative anymore because it went in a different direction, which is why outlines are useless and you hate them. What? My personal anecdotes? Sometimes that happens and you just have to deal with it. If you're a pantser like I am, it comes as part of the territory. The best part about all of these 5 things is that you can update them throughout the month of November, and it helps to try and keep you somewhat more organised than you might be otherwise. Like I said, I very much believe in writing things as they come to me, but gee does that make for a disorganised draft. And I like doing things on paper, and having somewhere to store all of that is really, really beneficial. So it's something that can be useful, and it might be worth considering. So yes, there it is. That is my tips for planning NaNoWriMo if you don't like to plan things, or if you don't like outlining, or if you're a pantser, which I've said too many times considering I really hate the word. I hope you have a great NaNoWriMo, share your tips, and I will see you next time. I think it's wonky. It's fine. But in my last Nano project / my Camp NaNoWriMo 2011? Didn't even know NaNoWriMo was a thing in 2011.